Well, I'm back on here this morning, and believe it or not, somebody in their greatest wisdom took issue with some of the facts I put on my channel yesterday. Well, in fact, FEMA has announced more than once in the last 24 hours about their lack of funding. Now, Congress is going to do something about it. I just hope it's in time so that funding can be restored, but without proper oversight, I'm not sure how good it's going to do. I try to hold this so it don't crackle or anything. It's obvious that the funding either isn't enough or it's not being utilized according to the program. And one of the things that they put on there today, one of the other YouTubers, he said in the new updated version of FEMA, that paragraph I'd warned you about the other day about an inclusion type of paragraph, but it names the different minorities to include races, religions, everything like that. And one classification was left out. In other words, in the new FEMA program, the questions they're going to ask have to do with a lot of things so that you can fit into this list of people that would be qualified for FEMA. And a oversight committee, and I believe it was in the Congress, had asked one of the persons that were apparently one of the higher ups that write all these things in there that the rest of us have a hard time understanding, went through the list. And he said, do you know what was left out? He said, everything in here is listed about who should be given priority in these right for different funding and loans and all kinds of stuff. And of course, this person that was being questioned just shook their head. No. If you are a straight, white male, okay, in other words, a heterosexual white male, you don't meet the qualifications according to the Equality or Equity Act that this federal government has enacted in most of their paperwork. So the only way you can get around it, you're going to have to dig back and see if you can find somewhere where you had a different religion, a different color somewhere in your background, put on there, I don't know, anything, but do not put down Caucasian, male, and that you're heterosexual, because you won't be authorized. Not only you won't be hired, but you won't qualify. Now, I know you're going to think that, that I'm wrong, but you go back on there and you look up the new program for FEMA. And it's in a lot of things in the government right now. Most of their stuff has been put into that way. If you're looking for a loan or handout or help in any way, a lot of these things are going to be on there. But that particular paragraph has been added to almost all documentation. It seems strange. I'm not sure why they would want to leave one specific thing out. And I guess they think that those particular people have it going for them. And Kamala Harris got on her one of her speeches, of course she's running for president, right? And tried to explain all this stuff away. Using the word salad. Oh, yeah. She said that not all of us are born with that same equal start. I got to thinking. Well, this nation, if it's left to its freedoms, you all have the opportunity to get anywhere you want, or you would have, until stuff like this comes along. And then you're listed about the help, your chances of getting help, by your race and religion and your sexuality is part of it. And I'm thinking, this doesn't open it up at all. In fact, it lists you as a qualifying according to whatever you claim to be. Okay, well, I'm all done with that part. Now, I made a statement out there that there's no country in the world that allows open borders. What I should have said was there's no country in the world that doesn't have immigration restrictions. Because when I looked it up, in that manner about restrictions, the first thing that come under Google was none, N-O-N-E. Excuse me a minute. The person, boy, I better get a drink of water. Sorry about that. Sometimes if I push a little hard when I'm talking, I end up coughing. It has a little bit to do with COPD. See if I can calm myself down a little bit so I don't get so much phlegm moving around. Whew. Maybe I can go a lower octave. I might have got too excited when I was trying to get on here to talk about this thing. Obviously, if I'm on here, I'm going to be second guessed, and that's fine because then I can fine tune what I'm trying to talk about. And I did look all this stuff up on Google, and I'm not saying that everything on Google is correct, but there are multiple things backing it up under Google. But the first very thing was, in very big letters, was N-O-N-E. None. Most borders were strengthened during the pandemic. And so there's more countries restricting access than before. Now, in Europe, I think there's 7 countries have equalization of what would be considered ID so they can freely travel within that set of 7 countries. Okay. So they still have restrictions for immigration. And some of them had opened their borders for a short period, but they still required documented immigrants, not people that just freely came in. Matter of fact, they put a stop to it very quickly because they were overwhelmed, and that was Germany. Our border has been opened up for over 3.5 years now, and there's many that came in here with no IDs. There's no background check whatsoever, and they're walking around our country. Also, a lot of people that came across, and there's multiple pictures of it, the biggest share of people that came in are what you would call eligible fighting age males from the different countries. In particular, China is one of them. Now, these people that are coming here, they're not vetted in any way. They don't have... one of the things that most countries require is that they have to be able to sustain themselves in that country while they're there. In other words, they can't just go out there and go on the dole by the country itself. Our country has not required that at this point. And in fact, one of the problems we have with FEMA is some of the funds were siphoned off from FEMA to accommodate foreigners into our country that are, under our statutes, they are illegal because they didn't cross at a checkpoint. Now, they're going to play with words to justify actions. But come on, people. We can't fly without documentation, our own people. In fact, my driver's license has a little gold star on it to show that I am a vetted U.S. citizen and can be trusted for interstate or country travel, okay? And also that I'm able to vote. All I have to show is that ID with that little gold star, and I can do a lot of things. Not so if you're an illegal immigrant. You can actually get on an airplane and fly without being identified. It seems a little strange, doesn't it? FEMA. Time after time, as I was looking through there about the FEMA program and the people that have just got hit with this storm, Helena, and they're having a huge time trying to qualify for $750. Now, I don't know how far you think $750 would go or how many days it'll last, but it won't pay for the average motel room or hotel room for a week. These people out there, the ones that have been found, a lot of them don't have a home and probably never will again. When I seen the photos out there, it would make you sick to understand how bad it really is. Most of your housing is built along these small streams and valleys, hollers if you want to call them so. And when you get a rain, it just sits there and holds over the top for days. The water that comes rushing down off those mountains wipes everything out that's within those valleys, and there's nothing left. And part of the mountain starts sliding down. You get these mudslides, a lot of them, not just a few. So, and it's sudden. When the mountain gives away, you may feel the ground tremble a little bit, and then it's gone. It just goes. And they did show some pictures. There was actually one where a woman caught it on her phone, and it was scary coming down the side of that mountain. And it was over quickly, like that. There is no real warning about something like that usually. It just happens. The ground gets soaked, and the weight pulls it down, and it's done. If you were in that circumstance, you have nothing left, and you are lucky enough to be alive. Now, you have no internet service anymore. And you may not even have a phone. Who knows? So where in the area do you go to fill out these forms? Because the forms are filled out through the media like this. I mean, internet. And it's intricate. It's a very hard form to fill. If you don't have internet, you can't fill out the form. If you don't have a phone, you can't, or a computer, or access. There's not power out there in a lot of places yet. When you're out there in the mountains, you're isolated. Goodness sake, what is going on here? Do we not have the good sense anymore to realize this? Now, there's going to be some troops down there, right? If we were attacked by a foreign country, would we run into this same confusion? Would it take this much time to get troops in the area? Let's see. When I was in Germany, we had operation going on over there where we were flying in a huge amount of troops. And then about 4 days, we had an army in Germany, a mobile army, equipment and manpower and everything it takes to be at war with another country. 4 days. In our own country, where we have all these bases around there, we aren't going to do the same thing. This is a national emergency on our East Coast. Hundreds of people at risk. Actually, it's more like thousands of people at risk. It's hundreds that have been killed. One woman got on there, and I don't know where she got the numbers, but she, just where she was, there was hundreds died. Now, I can't verify that. This was just a woman that was talking on the YouTube. She was crying. She was interviewed by a station out there, a TV station. There was one guy on there. He was on the, I think it was called Queen's Net or something like that. He had a helicopter, private, it says helicopter, and he went out there to help. And in fact, he had found he was surveying an area, and there was a man and a wife flagged him down. They needed help. They'd been stranded for a couple of days, and he landed, but he could only take one of them off at the time, and he did that. And he left his son on the ground with the woman to keep her company while he flew he took the woman in, left his son on the ground with the man. He get over to a town where he could drop in, and this chief of the fire department come over and just chewed him out and said that if he went up there to rescue the guy up there, and he left his son up there, if he went back up there to get his son and that guy, he would be arrested. Wow. Now, he went up there, he picked his son up. He didn't care. If he got arrested, that was fine, but he didn't pick the guy up. He said, I'm sorry. He gave him the chief's name. This is a guy, he said, you could not be, if I pick you up and bring you back to there with your wife, I will be arrested. He said, I'm not going to do that. And he apologized to the guy and flew off. Well, the guy knew then that he was going to have to do something on his own, so since his wife was safe, he went down through the woods and found his way, picked a way, got down to one of the rivers that was still raging pretty good. And there were some rescuers on the other side from another state, by the way, not from North Carolina. And they got ropes to him, and they pulled him across this raging river and saved his life. And he was able to reunite with his wife. It almost makes you cry, the bureaucracy of the people that are left in charge of our safety and to coordinate it. In time of need like this, when minutes can cause lives, and people are starving to death on the side of that mountain, and you tell somebody that is already aware of somebody that can be saved, doesn't matter how many, it can be one or it could be 1,000. But you tell them, you cannot do that. If you go up there to save this person, we will jail you. You go to jail. You don't have my permission. You can't do it. This guy was somehow in charge of what happened on that mountain. I don't know how we got so far out that the good sense is not allowed to prevail over the bureaucracy of mountain or of dotting an I and crossing a T. What do you guys think? Do you think we've gone too far into into this? You got to do it because it's written. Is the United States claiming their laws and their plans are higher than the Bible? I want to go by biblical things. If I had that helicopter, I would have brought that man down the side of the mountain. And I would have put him with his wife. I wouldn't have made him take a chance of dying out there on the side of that mountain trying to get through that terrain that's left after all that storms, where he might have to cross mudslides that are still unstable, and only to get to that river and find out that he can't get across it, which stops a lot of life-saving events. He was lucky somebody from another state, a group of people, were able to save him. Not that chief. People on the ground on the other side of that river were able to get ropes to him and pull him across there. Not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. So we've got this thing called FEMA that let a lot of the funds get down to a minimal amount where they can't really help people out. And all of a sudden we're going to get a few troops down there. Well, let me tell you. When I was in the Army, we had the capabilities. We could have probably built a small town in a matter of days. We could have put airstrips in. We had all the equipment, manpower, and the intelligence to do it. I'm wondering why in the United States we send those same people to foreign countries. We give them all the money in the world. We guard their borders for them or help them guard their border. We send them all the weapons of war, and we can't send a shovel through FEMA to the people in the mountains. It takes a little while for them to sit down and figure it out. Now, I'm wondering, if you have an apartment house or a business in a municipality, you have to submit plans for fire and emergency exits from your building, or else you can't get an occupancy permit. In other words, you have to have it figured out, and you have to do drills every once in a while because the insurance requires it. So we have an area where hurricanes come up through there. And we don't have an emergency plan that works immediately for survivors after the hurricane went through. Or do we? Or is that the problem, that the plan don't work right? What do you think? Do you think we have some people at the top that don't know what they're doing? Does it sound like that to you? Are people not making it down that mountain because of the bureaucracy? Are people not getting some subsistence because of the bureaucracy? Is the paperwork more important than the person? I want to tell you, back 16 years ago, like 16 years ago from last March, I had a stroke. Now, you notice a lot of times I'd lean a little bit to the right. The stroke was on my right side. This eye is a little bit slow. When I got to the hospital, the first thing they did, I drove down there, believe it or not, with one side that was shutting down on me, and I was having trouble talking. My mouth was drooping. Saliva came out. I walked up there, and this receptionist looked at me, and she said, "Okay, well, just fill out this paperwork." So I grabbed the paperwork, and I went to sit down, and I couldn't think. And I went back up there, and I said, "I'm having a little trouble here. I think I've had a stroke, but I'm not sure." And I think it was less than a minute. There's multiple people come out. They put me on a gurney and took me somewhere. It wasn't very far from that desk, and started working on me. And they were asking questions, and I was trying to answer. Before the day was up, I'd had all different kinds of tests on my brain to see what was going on up there. I had things going in my veins, and they were able to get whatever was wrong unplugged, and my facilities came very quickly back. I mean, I hadn't lost them completely. But I found out the emergency room, they have a plan for people that have a problem. And they didn't give two craps about that piece of paper. It had to be filled out to see if I had insurance. Because that's what it was to see if I had insurance. And then the paperwork behind it asks other things like that's important, like your health and who to notify and all that. Once they stabilized me, then they wanted to know who I wanted notified. In the meanwhile, I guess I called my wife, and I didn't know where I was at because by then this stroke took over some of my good senses. And my phone, my number is there where I just punch. I was able to get it. And finally the hospital had given directions on how to get there and what room I was in and stuff like that. So things happen, and people that are trained for emergencies can quickly respond to something like that. And that makes me wonder if FEMA has been around all those years and they have this much trouble getting together and getting up in that mountain, and we have bases in different areas on the East Coast out there that were still operational, had helicopters. These big helicopters can get a lot of supplies in very quickly, and I've watched it. I mean, I know, like I say, I was in the military. I can see how quickly we can move supplies. Supplies are the blood of your troops in a war zone. Without the supply line, you can't live. The people that keep the thunder out there in front are your supply people behind you. They're worth their weight in gold, and so is the material there. And yet we can't do the same thing in a national disaster. So what does that tell you, people? If we don't have what it takes, because you have to have water, and you have to have food, and you have to have shelter. Did any of you, let me ask you, this is a stupid question. Did you see them putting up big tents out there for people so that they could have a place, a dry place to stay? Do they have clothing, even Class X clothing? Yeah. If you're in the military, you know what Class X clothing is. It's used clothing that's clean, and they, well, anyway, it's used clothing. I have a misunderstanding here. We have all these plans for war and protect our country. We can't protect our citizens from a storm, something like a storm. Once the storm's over, it don't fight us back. It's open. It's open to us to bring our equipment in there. We can very quickly put roads in. They're not going to have roads and bridges for months or years maybe. But we could do it as a military. We could go in there and it wouldn't take any time at all. We could do it. Could be an exercise. It could be done. We have a budget to move our military around. Why not use them? Oh, wait, gee. You have to have the ability to think a little bit to do something like that, don't you? I mean, as a citizen out there, does this make sense to you? I mean, I know our capabilities. I was out there. I seen the capabilities. A soldier, a private, could go out there and do a better job than FEMA did because he's trained. He knows. Oh, boy. I don't know how else to give it to you. I don't know if this will stand there because it is absolutely a negative commentary towards the efficiency of a program that was meant to pick us up in a national emergency. Is this going to be another Katrina? You know, back when that happened, and by the way, I used to live in Louisiana, out there in Houma, Louisiana. One of my favorite stations that I watch is some people, it's called Dat, Louisiana, and I watch that. Yeah, I miss some of that. I don't miss the hurricanes, but I miss living down there. For right now, I'm going to let you go, and I want to research a few more things, and I'll get back on there. I'm just going to put this down there. I don't know what I'll label that, but I'll label it something because I want it to get out there. The fallacy of FEMA, maybe. And I'm going to put multiple ones out there, so give you plenty of things to think about. With that, I'm going to let you go. And I'll be back in a little bit. I'm going to put another one of these up.